Today is January 4th, 2024. My name is Roxanne Evans, and I am interviewing Jerry Ann Cannon Hunter for the Contextualization and Commemoration Initiative. Thank you, Ms. Hunter, for agreeing to this interview.
You're certainly welcome.
Ms. Hunter, this interview is being recorded, and the unedited copy will be housed at UT Austin. Please know if there's anything you do not wish to discuss, I will certainly honor your wishes. If there are topics you wish to discuss and I have not asked you about them, please do bring them up. And lastly, if we need to take a break to get a drink of water or for any other reason, just wave and let me know.
Okay, I will.
Okay. Well, let's begin at the beginning, Miss Hunter. Let us start with your childhood. Where did you grow up, and what was your childhood like growing up?
Okay, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm not a good speaker, so I'm an off the cuff. So I've written down the answers. Please forgive me for reading the answers so that I won't forget anything.
That's
Okay.
quite all right.
Okay, I grew up in Houston, Texas. Houston is a large city, both in population and in area. At the time, there was very little housing congestion. So it's a big city, but not a whole lot of houses close together. Mostly they were single houses, although there were some government projects, multifamily buildings in the area for housing. What I remember most about Houston was the climate. It was bad. It was very uncomfortable. It was always humid. It doesn't matter what season, it was humid because it's very close to the Gulf of Mexico.
Exactly.
So, and whenever there were hurricanes, we get it because it's right there, 50 miles away. So it was just, yeah. And Houston is a low-lying area too.
Yes.
So, you get the pooling of the water and bios and so forth and so on. So it was seldom cold. Sometimes in winter it would get cold.
Mhm.
And we'd have ice storms once in a while, and sometimes a norther would come through, which would make it really cold. I don't know if people know about northers,
Oh, yeah.
but you know about them. Um, Summer was the worst. It was always humid, hot, simmering for the most part. 100-degree days were very common. And I guess the worst part was the insects.
Oh,
The gigantic blood-sucking mosquitoes and also flying cockroaches, if you can imagine that.
oh, yeah. Oof.
At night, you really had to be careful. So that was the worst part of the weather. So, spring was really good. It was the best time of year, but it was always short because summer came barging in early,
Right.
always. And it was stayed around until about mid-September. So that left us a short winter too. So that's what I remember the most.
Okay.
Um, let's see. I didn't like the ice storms in the winter because it was so cold and I wasn't used to cold. And you couldn't go to school because you would slip on the ice, and some of the ice would may fall off. The icicles may fall off the trees and hit you. So we didn't go. But I didn't like the part of not being able to go to school because I love school. That was my favorite thing.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Okay.
Now, tell me, what were race relations like in Houston when you were growing up and when you were in school?
But they weren't good. They never have been, and they still aren't that great. Race relations. I have something written here which there was very, very little interaction between the races. uh, total apartheid, total, when I was there. There were white only and colored signs everywhere. The only place where all races were seen at the same time was downtown Houston, and segregated public transportation, sitting at the back of the bus. We certainly were considered less than the white uh, community, less than, but no, less than the Hispanics. They were considered the bottom of the barrel. And they were known then as wetbacks and pepper bellies. So that was, not nice. So that's the extent of race relations. Now, I haven't been back to Texas. I don't know. The last time I came back was for a reunion at UT, and I didn't stay long. So I don't know how the race relations are now. I can't answer that.
Okay. Now, Miss Hunter, tell me what your schools were like growing up. What kind of schools did you attend, and what do you remember most about those schools? You said you liked
Okay, well,
schools.
those schools, actually, the physical plant was nice, not bad at all, not run down, well maintained. And we did have temporary buildings, that is, buildings that were outside of the main structure. And they were fine. They were maintained fine. We had heat and everything. There was no hardship there. The only thing is that they weren't exactly temporary. They were like, they never disappeared. So therefore we didn't have overcrowding because we had ample space. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Let me see what else can I say about our schools. Oh, my high school, actually, while I was there, we had some additional spaces built. One was a new auditorium, and the other was, in addition to the physical ed department, a swimming pool. So that was something, back in the day,
Right.
for black people to get a swimming pool.
Right. Wow.
That was pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, so that, I guess that's most of what I have to say about that.
Now, tell me how you would evaluate the education you received in your K through 12 years, and particularly any memories you might have of teachers or interaction with the adults during your educational years.
Yeah, I'm gonna say most of my teachers were dedicated to providing a good educational experience for us. A few were outstanding, and a couple were inspirational. I mean, really inspirational. Um, Most of these were in chemistry, biology, or math. Unfortunately, the least talented teachers seemed to be in social studies. It was like, okay, boring dates, and you know, you have to remember dates and what happened. Boring, no insight into what was going on behind the actions or the occurrences. My high school principal was inspirational. He was also inspirational. Mr. Holland fought for what was best for us. I just can't emphasize that how much, too much. He was great. He appeared to be white, but even with his Texas drawl, that whole thing, but he was all the way black under the skin. He was really, really for us, for the students, and he fought for us. Okay.
Okay. Now, let's move forward. Tell me what you had heard about UT Austin before you came to school here, and what was UT Austin's reputation in your community?
It was considered racist, very much so, and prejudiced. Um, we no, no black students were actually in attendance at that time. And I think someone had to sue. I think it was it Heman Sweat or something
Yes. Mm-hmm.
to actually be admitted to the graduate school program. So we understood it to be, under pressure that that it was integrated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How familiar were you with the Sweat v. Painter case, and did your community discuss it or participate in it?
We discussed it, but there was no. We were aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can say about it. I don't know if there were any um, participants in his suit or not from Houston. I don't know.
Okay. Now, during the time you were growing up, were there other civil rights cases in the news that maybe you were aware of, or maybe that your
Sure.
family talked about more?
Sure. I guess the biggest was busing. Was integrating the public schools. I don't think it even is. They have not been fully integrated even now.
Yeah.
It was just very difficult during that time. So, and disappointing that people found a way not to do it. So even setting up their own schools and so forth and so on. So that was unfortunate.
Yes, I definitely agree. Now tell me why you decided to apply to UT.
How much time do you have?
We've got plenty of time.
It's a long story. Let me just. Okay. I applied to several universities throughout the country, including Howard University and Stanford University in California, and a couple of others. They all accepted me. They all accepted me. I was excited to go to Stanford. This was heartbreaking. However, the admissions department notified me after a while that one of my recommendations had not been sent in. And so I contacted my new church pastor and asked him if he had sent the recommendation in. I knew my teachers had. And he said, no, he had forgotten. So he promptly sent it in, but I heard from the admissions department that it was too late because the freshman women, had to live on campus at that time. You had to live on campus in the women's dorm. And all of the housing had been filled. No room at the end by
Wow.
that time. I know. That kind of broke my heart.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Wow.
you know.
Mm.
So I decided to go with UT. I knew I would be accepted, or I thought I would, because it was advertised that the people who finished first in their graduating class would be automatically accepted and get a little scholarship too. I had a scholarship. I had a full scholarship for 4 years, given by Worthing. I don't know if you've ever heard of the scholarship, but I don't know if they even do it. I don't think they do. But certain people from each Black high school were eligible to receive this grant.
Okay. So you
So I
graduated from
already had
Worthing High School. Worthing High School.
scholarship
Okay.
for that, but this would be an additional scholarship.
Okay.
So, and which I got and was grateful.
Okay. Excellent.
So I wanted to go to college in an integrated setting. I'd never had that experience, and that's what I wanted. A lot of people wanted to go to uh, historically black colleges, but I wasn't one. I was never popular. I, I was not um, cool. I was an egghead. You know, I was a nerd. So, so I wasn't, popular with my peers in high school. So that's really why because the opportunity was there, and my family, they were kind of happy about it because there was something about trailblazing that seemed daring and uh, something to be proud of.
Definitely something to be proud of. Certainly, certainly. Now, you graduated in the top portion of your class. Did that
I
require
graduated number one.
number one? Oh, wow. So then, were you required to take an entrance exam?
No, I
Okay,
didn't.
I
I
guess
didn't have
not.
to take.
Why?
No, I was no, I didn't.
Wow.
Speaking of exams, they did University of Texas something. So sometime after the first class was admitted, sometime after that, maybe the first year or the first semester or something, they decided that they needed to have some kind of exams for everybody to take. This is some exam. I don't remember what it was, but I remember the outcome. Number one, I thought it was incredibly simple. I thought very easy. I didn't think it was challenging at all. And second of all, there were the consequences of not passing the exam was that you would go on scholastic probation.
Oh my.
Yeah. Yes. So in order to try to get, they underestimated our intelligence, obviously. So, so I think maybe 40 people went on a scholastic probation where thousands of white people did, white students did.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I think it was like 3,000
Is
went
that
on
right?
scholastic probation
So it probably wasn't the outcome
trying to
they
get
were
the black people out.
expecting.
Yes. I
Amazing.
thought that was really interesting. I thought it was funny.
Wow. Now, thinking back to your first time on campus, how did you get to campus for the first time when you were about to enter as a
That's the
student?
story too. We were housed off campus in a woman's dorm,
Mm-hmm.
and our house mother, who was a white nun, used to take us in a small van. She had limited or questionable driving skills. So we decided after maybe a semester that we would rather walk to campus. We
Wow.
thought it'd be less scary, less harrowing. So that's what we did. In groups, in groups. We'd
Uh-huh.
walk. Yeah.
Okay. Hmm. Now, what were your first impressions when you arrived on campus for the first time?
Well, I said, this is a big place. It was enormous, really spread out, but really very well maintained. I thought it was well maintained. And there were a lot of buildings, a lot of people, a lot of mostly white people. I wasn't used to seeing all of that many.
Yes.
But they weren't hostile or anything to me.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them actually spoke,
Wow.
which I found that interesting.
Hmm. Okay. Now, when you started, what were your expectations of how you thought things would be for you as a first-year student?
I thought they would be, as they turned out, difficult. I thought it would be difficult because it was a challenge to the students to accept us and a challenge to the teachers and professors. And that's true.
Mhm.
I didn't have any confrontations,
Mhm.
not one.
Okay. Okay. So your actual experiences sounded like somewhat mirrored what you thought it would be.
Yes,
Mhm.
I kind of like, I kind of expected it. I wasn't surprised.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now, what do you think your professors' expectations of you were as a student?
Very, very low,
Mhm.
very low. They seemed surprised when if I did well, very surprised.
Mm.
And it's- it was discouraging
Mhm.
that they felt that way. Some of them actually, one or two of them actually made it a point to downgrade our grades so that I didn't get the grade point average that I should have.
Mm.
Put it that
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
Not all of them, but a
Right.
few.
Right. Hmm. And you said some of them were surprised at your performance, but you graduated the top in your class. That's
Well,
so,
they didn't know that.
ah,
They didn't know.
okay. Hmm. So they basically looked at you and decided where they thought you would be and how they thought you would perform, basically. Okay. Tell me a little bit more about your living situation during your first 2 years on campus.
Okay, for the first year, we lived off campus in a dormitory, and we were driven to campus, as I mentioned,
Right.
by this lady who, said, very nice lady. She was very sweet. Um, so on my first year, it was at a dormitory, which was formerly associated with Houston Tillotson College.
Oh. Hmm.
Yeah. So let's see what I said about that. What's the Yes. Okay. Yeah. And all the all the black women, uh, both graduate and undergraduates, lived in this dormitory.
Okay.
The good part about it is that I was best friend since the fifth grade was my roommate.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Yes, Mamie, Mamie Hands.
Hmm. Wow.
My
Now,
second year is kind of weird. My second year, I joined the Christian Faith and Life community. Have you heard of that?
what was it called in the Christian?
Christian Faith and Life community.
No, I haven't
It
heard
was,
of that.
I know, yeah, I don't think it, I'm sure it doesn't exist anymore. Um, it was a little bit like a lay seminary,
Okay.
in to the university classes.
Mm-hmm.
We also attended small group classes, and
Oh,
we
okay.
had classes in the history of the church, Christianity, as well as classes in philosophy.
Wow.
It was quite good.
Hmm.
We also had to maintain a certain grade point average to because you were doing extra.
Right, right.
The girls' dorm was um, a block from campus, which was plus,
Yes.
a big plus. We didn't have to go that far. My so and so my former roommate Mamie joined me there the second semester. So it was
Very
great. It
nice.
was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Wow.
Weren't roommates there because they didn't allow that.
Ah,
Black people to live together. They wanted to be integrated. They wanted it to be integrated.
yes. I can understand that.
Okay. that was it.
Now, do you recall if you had to take a swimming test for physical education when
Yes, and I failed.
you? Okay, okay,
So I had to take swimming.
okay.
Hated it.
So you had to take a swimming class. Okay.
Yes,
That's
I
part
had
of
to take. I
physical.
had to take it. It
Okay.
was mandatory.
Now, do you recall any other limits regarding your choice of physical education classes
You know,
while a student?
I remember there was some limitation. There was some limitation.
Okay.
I can't. It's too, far back to remember
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
I don't remember, but I think that the we were only a few choices.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
of the choices I chose dance or something like that.
Okay. Okay. Now, tell me a little bit more about what your classroom interactions were like, both the interactions with your professors.
Unremarkable, unremarkable. I was shocked. No confrontations, unremarkable.
Okay.
I can't remember any incidents
Okay.
in class that were unexpected.
Okay. Now, tell me about your community of friends at UT. You mentioned Mamie. Tell me about some of your other friends at UT.
Okay, so my closest knit people were the people who came from Texas University. I'm sorry, came from Jack Yates High School with me.
Oh, Yates. Okay.
A bunch of 6 or 7 of us. 6 or 7 of us.
Okay.
So I wasn't alone. I had people from home, so
Right.
that was
Right.
good. Specifically, I guess Mamie Hans Ewing was my roommate and best friend, and then June Singletary and Barbara Smith, Erlene Miles, Donald Hill, David Hilliard. I'm sorry, Roby Hilliard, Joe McBride. Those some those were the people that I really interacted with most.
Okay. Now, tell me a little
Now there
bit.
are other people. I
Right.
remember their faces, but not their names. That's too long ago.
I understand. Now, Miss Hunter, tell me what you and your friends did for entertainment on campus.
Yeah, we played cards. We played cards in the dorm, like bridge or bid whist or spades or something.
Uh-huh.
Uh, that that's the most entertainment we did. We also, when we had the money and the opportunity, would go out to dinner, usually at a Mexican restaurant because they would serve us,
Ah, okay.
and or any other restaurant that would serve Black people. You didn't have to get carry out or something.
Right.
So that's it. And we went to movies over on the east side of Austin, which
Okay.
is where the Black community resided, because of course this movie theaters were segregated.
Yes. Yes.
So that and we didn't have really much time
Yeah.
for entertainment because we had to study hard.
Exactly. Now, tell me a little bit about your relationship with the larger Black community in Austin while you were at UT.
Okay. This, I don't know if this is what you mean, but I'll give you an example.
Certainly.
So we founded our first class. We founded the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority
Oh,
at UT. We founded it.
okay.
I was the instigator. I had my reasons. Okay.
Awesome.
My father's elder sister was an AKA. And my mother attempted to found a chapter at Houston Tillotson, which was right across the street from where my dorm was. my first year dorm.
Mm-hmm.
So she had attempted to found that chapter. She contacted national headquarters, and they responded positively. However, she didn't get the letter until near the end of graduation
Oh,
because her her dorm her house mother was a Delta, and she wanted mom to be a Delta.
oh my.
Do you think that would inspire her to be a Delta?
No.
No,
No.
that was really cruel. So I had to make up for it.
And you did nicely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
What about some of the other organizations at UT or HT that you might have been involved with?
Well, that was it. That was it. Now, do you mean campus-wide?
Yeah, campus organizations, for example.
That was it. That
Okay.
was it. Because we really weren't recruited
Mm-hmm.
or welcomed,
Yeah.
most of them.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Okay. Now, what political events do you recall going on in Texas around the time that you were at UT that maybe captured your attention or your imagination, or that you followed closely in the news?
I didn't follow them. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't follow them closely at all. I had my hands full.
Yes. Okay. Now, tell me a little bit, thinking back, what were some of the spaces you felt most welcomed at UT?
Okay, I felt most welcome at Christian Faith and Life Community, obviously.
Okay.
Oh, something funny happened while I was there. Somebody called up the community. Somebody made a phone call, and I answered the phone. And they say, "This is a man. He's obviously white." And he said, "I hear there's this nigger girl you got there." And I said, "Well, yes." "Well, I don't think she ought to be there. You shouldn't be. She shouldn't be there." "Okay, I'll tell them."
Wow. Now that's funny. Jeez.
I know it was. I thought it was hilarious. I didn't take offense because I knew I expected that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
I forgot to mention that until just now.
Okay. That's a good one. Wow.
Yes.
Now, what were some of the spaces that you might have felt most excluded at during your
Oh, I
time here?
also felt included. I felt comfortable in the student union.
Okay.
That was that was fine. That was fine. We
Okay.
didn't have any incidents there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I felt excluded from the service uh, and fraternal and academic organizations
Mm-hmm.
on on the campus. I
Yeah.
did. So we just kind of created our own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
And
understand.
it was kind of hard too because especially the yellow jackets, I mean the orange jackets, because several of my housemates at the Christian Faith and Life Community, I was the only one there, only Black person there at the time. Several of them were orange jackets. So, I kind of wanted to be one. But, I didn't expect it. I wasn't hurt because I didn't expect it, but I was hoping maybe. Yeah.
Yes, I understand. Now, tell me a little bit about how coming to UT affected you, how spending time here might have affected the trajectory of your career and your life after UT.
Okay, this is going to be long too. So, my my career benefited by being able to discover the direction that I wanted to pursue. And it was very fortuitous, and I'm very glad that I was at the Christian Faith and Life community when I figured it out. And I started out wanting to be a physicist. Listen, I was just 16 when I went to college. I was just 16.
Wow.
I didn't know. I had never had a physics course. But they just had, I had the Sputnik. So I was thinking the best way to be able to be the first woman on the moon is to be an astrophysicist.
Wow, that's awesome. Wow.
So really, really. So I took my first physics course and I hated it because I realized that I would spend, if I became a physicist, I would have to spend the rest of my life solving equations in a lab by myself. No, that's not for me. So I dropped that course. I didn't even finish it. When I'm like, dang, I got to ring a bell. No, that's not for me. And I thought about other courses of study. I thought about them, considered geology, but this was Texas in the 50s. And everybody who was in geology, they were men,
Ah.
white men,
Mm-hmm.
who were being instructed on how to find oil that was floating right under the surface.
Right.
That's what that was about. So nobody was interested in a little old black woman girl being a geology major. No. So I thought about it, but I never got someone to sponsor me. I never got an advisor. I never got an advisor for that. I said, well, this isn't it. And I know why. So one day when I was trying to figure it out after I dropped my physics course, I was at the community at lunchtime and I was late getting to lunch. So there was only one person there. And she seemed real happy. I said, so what's going on? Oh, I just came from my bacteriology course. It is so fun. I said, it is? Yeah. Oh, it's so fun. I love it. I said, okay. So I signed up for bacteriology. I tried it. I liked it. I majored in it.
Wow.
Just from so and that helped set me on the road that I eventually pursued
Okay. Wow, that's pretty
for my
amazing.
life's work.
Mm.
Yeah. So that was a good part.
Okay. Now, what kind of doors did a degree from UT perhaps open for you?
Well, I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but the very first job I got was at National Institutes of Health in Bethesda as a research bacteriologist. That was my first job in my life. First. So I applied. I saw this. I applied for it. I got the interview and I was accepted right then. I was hired right then. At the end of my interview, he said, well, when
Wow.
can you start?
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm like, what?
Hmm.
I was thrilled. So I don't know whether that answers your question, but
It does. It does. That's pretty awesome to get a job offer during the interview itself, and it's your first job out of college. So that's
ever,
pretty
any kind
remarkable.
of job. I never
Yeah.
had any job before.
Wow. Wow. So,
Yeah.
well, tell me a little bit more about your career. Where did you go after NIH?
it's a lot. It's a lot. I didn't stay put. Um, so let me see what I have to say. From there, after several life changes, including marriage and motherhood, I became a biology teacher in DC.
Ah,
I did that. I joined the Urban Peace Corps, Urban Teacher Corps. That's what it was.
mm-hmm.
And so I taught biology in the ghetto in DC.
Okay. Can I ask what some of the schools were you taught at?
I only taught at one, and that was at Cardozo.
Ah, okay, in
Uh,
Northwest.
Yeah, in Northwest.
Okay.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it very much. But we moved we moved to a better school system and a better housing situation to Columbia, Maryland, which is where I live now.
Okay.
So I left that job. The next job I got, and I was a stay-at-home mom for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The next home I got was the next job I got. My husband at that time and I opened a business that sold environmental products. That was around the time of the recession, where, because gas was so high and all of that, it was inflation and problems with the energy. So we decided we'd open that. He was formerly affiliated with IBM.
Okay.
He was a marketing manager, and he left there because they were racist too.
Yes. Yes.
So then we opened that business, which lasted for about 3 years. We we,
Mm-hmm.
we decided that we couldn't make a living with both of us doing that.
Right.
So because it was too new and it wasn't ready, you know, it's just alternative energy. It's just taking hold. I mean, how many years ahead were we?
Yeah.
Way ahead, too
Yes.
far. So then um, I left. I left that business and I went back to school at University of Maryland, College Park. But I wanted to. The reason I did that is I was thinking about maybe going to medical school.
Oh.
So I wanted to I needed to take some refresher courses because that stuff does not stay with you.
Right.
Physics, chemistry, all of that. That doesn't stay with you too long. So I needed to take calculus. I needed to take some refresher courses. I said, where can I go that will pay me to go to school? So I applied. I saw this one ad in the paper, and it said, a degree in any science would be what you needed, a criterion. And so I applied to University of Maryland safety department. So I was hired to be a lab safety officer.
Ah.
We inspected the labs to make sure that they were in compliance with OSHA regulations.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't have they had to have hoods in the labs and had to have certain things that they did, procedures that they had to go through. Okay, so I did that. I made all A's in my courses that I took. I was especially proud of what was it? Ah, it was supposedly it was in the math department, probably, and it was about probability.
Ah,
Okay,
like
and
statistics or something
somehow
along those lines?
somehow I made an A in it, and I was like, yeah, I was very happy because it's not really a math course.
Right, right.
But, yeah.
Okay.
What is that? Statistics?
I
I
think
think.
statistics, that's
Yeah,
probably what
I
it
think that's what
sounded
it
like.
was.
Yeah.
And I made an A, and I was very thrilled.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Um, I'm sorry.
I said, I'm very impressed. I took statistics and I did not do nearly as well.
Because you know what? I I figured it out. It's not math.
No, no.
You just use numbers.
Yes.
It's not math. And I said, I got an aha. This is so hard. It's not math.
Yeah. Wow.
That was the best insight I ever had. So anyway, so I stayed at University of Maryland for about 4 or 5 years, and then I applied to medical school. I, I hedged my bets a little bit. I also applied to Hopkins University, Johns Hopkins,
Mm-hmm.
in their um, epidemiology department. I
Okay.
said, if I don't make it in medical school, maybe I can be an epidemiologist.
Ah,
Okay, so I got in there fine, and then I found out I applied to two medical schools, University of Maryland and Howard, and I decided that I would take the one who accepted me first, and University of Maryland accepted me first.
okay. Wow.
So, yeah, I guess that's it.
Okay. That's quite a
So
bit.
the rest of my career is I just did, I practiced medicine, internal medicine, and urgent care medicine for the next um, 30 years or so. I just retired at age 83.
Wow. Wow.
I know.
Good for you.
No, no,
Good for
no,
you.
no.
Good for you.
I didn't specialize because I was already old. If I specialized, when I was 46 when I graduated.
Wow.
At that time, I was the oldest person to graduate
Wow.
from the University of Maryland.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite a career path. Very impressive.
Yeah, so that's why I think about UT because it started me in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
It started me to science and then to medicine.
Okay. Now, Miss Hunter, you mentioned that you came back for a UT reunion. Uh,
Yes.
Looking back, how do you think situations and conditions might have changed for students here compared to when you were a student?
I think they have a lot more opportunity. They're more accepted. There's less prejudice, but after all these years, and people have really done well because they're not being judged and minimized, and they've been able to succeed and do very well. There are plenty of people, who've done well at UT,
Mm-hmm.
including Barbara Jordan. I mean, she was a fantastic woman.
Yes.
All kinds of people, wonderful people have come out of there who've done very well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think it's changed for the better.
Changed
Much.
for the better. Excellent. Now, Ms. Hunter, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would like to share with us?
No, I shared what you didn't ask already. I already shared that. But that whole thing about medical school and all of that stuff.
Wow.
You didn't ask. So,
But that was
uh,
very, very good information. I'm glad you shared that. Wonderful information.
yeah, yeah. I had to share that because I had thought about medical school, but I said, nah, I'm too old. Blah, blah, blah. They're not gonna accept me. And I blah, blah, blah. But then I said, well, what the heck? I'll just try it. So, yeah.
That's a wonderful attitude to have. So I appreciate that. So, Miss Hunter, thank you so much for your time and for your information. It's been wonderful hearing your UT story. We certainly thank you for your time and information.
I was glad to share it, and thank you for asking.
Thank you.